All right, y'all. So I am back in action, back in full effect after that LA trip. It was phenomenal. As I said, I think Krystal did a wonderful job on Bill Maher. I hope everybody checked out our behind-the-scenes video where, I walk you through what it's like to go on Bill Maher. I actually was able to get a decent amount of stuff behind the scenes, which makes me happy because I was afraid that, they would really crack down on that and not allow me to record some stuff behind the scenes. But I guess I was sort of sly with it, and it succeeded. So that's nothing but wonderful. Check out that video. It should be the very last video that was dropped on the channel. But I wanted to take a moment to go through the specifics of what happened on the panel. And so I could tell you this. Krystal, immediately after the fact, she wasn't sure how she did. And if anything, she was leaning in the direction of like, geez, did I do a bad job? I feel like maybe I did a bad job. And it was really weighing on her. Like, she was very anxious over it. She couldn't sleep the night of. And I was trying to tell her, I was like, you did a great job. You did a phenomenal job. And the moment that stuck out to me the most was when Bill apparently didn't realize that the market crashed in March of 2020 and that the Fed basically backstopped the stock market and just pumped trillions of dollars into it. Bill either forgot about that or didn't know about that. Well, come to find out now, he definitely just forgot about it because at the time he did a monologue where it was one of the first things he mentioned at the beginning of the show. So Bill was indignant that like the market didn't crash, and Krystal was like, what are you talking about? And after the fact, that was the first moment that I brought up to Krystal and said, man, you really nailed him to the wall on that, because I'm amazed he doesn't remember that. He doesn't know about that. Well, David Dole did a video showing all of Krystal's like best moments. I want to watch it, react to it, and then also tell you guys a little bit about what it was like in the room, because it's definitely different in the room. The thing that I couldn't get over is that the audio in the room was horrendous. It was terrible. Like, you couldn't really hear, after somebody makes a point and the audience laughs or claps, you couldn't hear what the response was for like a solid 5 to 7 seconds. So, like, if somebody made a pithy point and everybody laughed or clapped, and then Krystal tried to respond, you couldn't hear much of it. And so it sort of gives a misperception of what it was like. But then when I saw some of the clips back just on TV, I was like, oh. So she did even better than I realized. So shout out to David Dole here. Krystal Ball dominates Bill Maher show with facts. So let's go ahead and take a listen.
Somehow nobody gets upset about the rich people who got tons of money and tons of support, way more than working class people did.
Sure,
but oh my God, people were able to feed their kids and they had a little bit of money in their bank accounts. It was the worst thing in the world.
Krystal Ball, who is the co-host of Breaking Points and Krystal, Kyle and Friends, was on Real.
Shout out to David for dropping Krystal, Kyle, and Friends in there. As oftentimes that's excluded by many, and they just say Breaking Points. So shout out to my boy David. By the way, he was on Krystal, Kyle, and Friends, I want to say like maybe 3 months ago. You should check that out. Krystal was actually out that day. It was just me, and David and I had a phenomenal conversation. So check that out if you haven't yet.
Time with Bill Maher, and did a fantastic job. Absolutely fantastic. So it is really hard to pierce that Bill Maher elite bubble, but Krystal Ball managed to do it, and her commentary on some of these issues, just great to have someone there actually educate a large audience of largely unaware people. So I have 3 clips to share with you. Let's just get to the first one. Is Joe Biden too far left?
Here's my question about Joe Biden for you two. Has he pandered to the far left? A, too much. B, too little. Not at all. Because AOC would say not at all.
Well, if you
Other people would say he pandered way too much to the far.
If you look at the trajectory of his presidency, at the beginning of his presidency, he did some of the things that myself as a person on the left would like him to see. He passes the COVID relief bill, and lo and behold, he had very high approval ratings.
You're not always on the...
So that is the $1,400 checks. That was when Biden had his highest approval rating. When he gave people $1,400 checks, his approval rating was over 50% at the time. And then ever since then, it's slowly but surely declined more and more and more and more. And now he's at a historic low. I mean, he's even lower than Trump. Now, I don't know if you caught what Bill Maher just said in response there, but he was like, you're not on the left, or you're not always on the left. Here, let's run that back.
Way too much to the far.
If you look at the trajectory of his presidency, at the beginning of his presidency, he did some of the things that myself as a person on the left would like him to see. He passes the COVID relief bill, and lo and behold, he had very high approval ratings.
You're not always on the left.
Then, I am on the left. I'm a Bernie Sanders leftist.
There's a populist economic left, and then there's the woke left. And these are two separate...
In any case, let's talk about what he's actually done.
So that's actually a fair point from, I think his name is Kirchik. He's an interesting guy. He's all about like gay rights, but he's also like a neocon and conservative in many ways. He's got very, very bizarre politics. But anyway, yeah, Bill apparently didn't even really realize that Krystal's on the left. Because I guess in Bill's mind, he thinks that, like, what do you mean? In order to be on the left, you need to, like, be in favor of firing people over offensive jokes. Or you need to yell at people, to use the term Latinx. So I genuinely think that that's what Bill thinks. Now, or the other option is he's doing this sort of guilt by association thing that people like to do, where because Krystal does a show with Sagar, who's nominally, you could either describe him as, like, populist right, or you could describe him at this point maybe as, like, enlightened centristy. Bill might be doing that guilt by association thing, which is like, wait, you do a show with this guy, so by definition, you cannot be on the left, which is absolutely absurd because, you know, Krystal is her own person with her own ideas and her own policy preferences, and she's very clear about them. She said, I'm a Bernie Sanders leftist. The last time she was on Bill's show, she was arguing for Bernie Sanders to be president. So for Bill to say, you're not on the left, that's very weird. That's very weird. It shows, I mean, he's missing some very basic things.
So in the beginning of the administration, he passes that. Very high approval rating, doing extraordinarily well. When he puts out the left agenda in the Build Back Better, and then it fails, and he stops delivering for the American people, that's when he falls off.
What do you mean by the left agenda in the Build Back Better?
Well, there's universal pre-K.
Put meat on that.
It's not everything that I would want.
Right.
No Medicare for all. There's no Green New Deal. But you had universal pre-K, you had affordable child care, you had elder care, you had an expansion of Medicare. You had things that would have delivered for the American people. That falls apart, partly because of Manchin, Sinema, Parliamentary, all of that. That falls apart. And since now the American people are feeling incredible pain with inflation and gas prices and unable to put food on the table and put gas in the car, and he's basically ceded the ground and said, there's not much I can do. I just hope the Fed gets this under control. Yeah, the approval ratings have fallen off a cliff. That's nothing to do with the left. I wish the left had more power. In fact, I think the left is the only part of the political spectrum that has offered anything to deal with inflation, gas prices, and the current economic situation that doesn't just involve, hey, let's trigger a recession and kill people's wages.
She's absolutely freaking it. Like, watching it back now, it's super clear. When I was in the room, like I said, the audio levels are low, so it's sort of hard to get a full grasp of what's going on. And I knew she was making good points, but there's something that's more dominating about her presence watching it on TV where the audio levels are actually good now. I mean, she's just like hammering them on this point.
Incredible. Incredible. And I have two more clips that arguably are even better. But before I get there, just quickly on this clip. First of all, on Bill Maher's question, really? You have to ask, is Biden placating the far left too much? Based on what? What has he done for the far left? What are you talking about? So Bill Maher is, if you have one...
David's right. Fucking Joe Biden doesn't even know where he is. He's placating the far left. My ass cheeks. He hasn't done anything. Like Krystal said, Build Back Better had a number of great provisions, and we've got none of them. He didn't go to executive orders to put any of them into law. He didn't try to do standalone bills. He didn't try to use reconciliation. We just got none of it. He's done nothing. And the idea is placating the far left. What does that even mean? What does that mean? He's not doing anything the so-called far left wants.
I watched the show recently, and I have barely, because it is terrible, but I've seen clips. I see what he focuses on. He is very focused on the far left woke mob. That's what he's concerned about. So, saying Latinx instead of saying Latino or Latino, that's very offensive to Bill Maher, as opposed to, low wages, as opposed to the climate crisis, as opposed to the cost of healthcare. What's really
By the way, check out the video I did that dropped the other day as well. Based old school Bill Maher takes. You will definitely see he changed a lot. In all of those old videos we go through, all the old new rules, he's hammering war. He's hammering the fact that we don't have universal health care. He's talking about wages. He's talking about how the left has the answers. I mean, he says he hasn't changed. Again, he went from supporting Bernie Sanders in 2016 to flirting with Amy Klobuchar in 2020. That's the definition of changing. But yeah, to David Dole's point, all that economic stuff he used to talk about is gone. Like now he's dying on the battlefield of the culture war.
For it is Latinx. Oh, that people don't want Latinx. But this is like, if you want to say, I don't know, has Biden even waged in on these culture war issues? Because
no.
I don't think he even has. So in what realm, in what reality is Biden too far left or trying to, placate the far left? What are you talking about? And Krystal Ball there is exactly right in terms of, the timeline here. So Biden began his presidency, high approval rating, passed the American Rescue Plan, got, checks out to people, help people. And then, by the summer, people were like, what the hell's going on here? When they began talking about the infrastructure bill and the Build Back Better bill and decoupling it, well, then things began to wane a little bit in terms of his approval rating. And then it really separated December 10th and beyond, when it became very clear that Build Back Better was not happening. If you go back, look at the timeline, look at the headlines around that time. Joe Manchin's discussing how he's not going to support the Build Back Better bill, how he's not going to support, childcare and everything else Krystal Ball mentioned there. That's when this really separated. When Biden just was like, oh, well, I guess I can't do anything. After he had promised Congress, members like AOC that, yes, he will get Manchin on board with this, and then didn't. And by the way, I should mention, AOC did not support the infrastructure bill because she realized that Biden would not be able to get Joe Manchin, and she was right. So you see...
Yes, so there were six left Congress people who did the right thing, who stood by the original deal. The original deal was, look, you got to put Build Back Better with the traditional infrastructure bill. If you don't pass them at the same time, we're not going to get Build Back Better. And so it was only, I think, 6 of them who said, I'm not going to vote for this traditional infrastructure bill. You guys lied to us. You said we do Build Back Better. We're not doing Build Back Better. I'm not voting for that. That was the deal. And so even like Ro Khanna and Pramila Jayapal voted the wrong way. Absolutely pathetic. It was like AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, and a handful of others. Again, I think 6 of them that voted the right way, and they were 100% right. And then nobody after the fact came back to that conversation and were like, oh my God, turns out the left was right, because Manchin's a liar, Sinema's a liar, they didn't agree to it, they said they would, and then here we are. Nobody ever corrected the record after and said, oh, I guess we should listen maybe to the left more, because they were correct on this. Nobody ever did that.
Here, the separation, that's what happened after Biden ultimately did nothing. And he still has executive power. This is, not just Joe Manchin's fault. Biden has executive power. He can do things through executive order. Like, I don't know, maybe take cannabis out of a Schedule I drug, do something to actually help people, cancel student debt. But he's not doing any of that. So
he could also lower prescription drug prices on his own. He already has the authority to do that. David Dane of the American Prospect made a list, and he has this Biden executive order tracker. We know he has the authority to do that. He also has the authority, by the way, to give everybody universal health care. There's a provision of Obamacare, and there's also a provision, I think, of the Social Security Act, which basically allows, in an emergency, an expansion of Medicare. And so we could just expand it to the whole country and say, well, we have a health emergency, so everybody's going to get health care. So you could just do universal health care like that. Now, would that be challenged in the courts? Of course. But at the same time, why not do it and then make the court and make the Republicans come out against it, because then you're the guy who's for health care and gave people health care, and they're the ones who took it away. He doesn't do that because he doesn't want to do that, because he doesn't believe in those things. So again, back to the main point here, the idea that Biden is catering too much to the far left is literally the dumbest thing I've ever heard, especially since even on those culture issues, I mean, Biden can't go a single speech without saying, like, defund the police is stupid. And look, that's an issue, a rare issue where I happen to agree with Joe Biden. I think that slogan is dumb and only polls at 18%. But the point is, he's not catering to the left in any imaginable way. If he did, he'd be way more popular.
So you have this massive disapproval now. The idea that he's too far left, and this is why. Why would he be losing young people if he's too far left? Mm-hmm. Like, are you stupid? But anyways, let's get to the next clip. This is on a debate over inflation and who actually got money during the pandemic.
Well, I mean, part of this inflationary problem is because we put too much money into the economy. There's way too much government spending, and that's why we...
Let me pause on this real quick. I don't buy that, because every expert who I've talked to has made crystal clear this is about the supply chain. It's about the supply chain. We had this pandemic. There are lockdowns in other places. The supply chain is totally messed up. That messes with the supply, which in turn messes with the price. That's one of the main things. The other thing is, as we learned from Matt Stoller, 60% of inflation is just going right to corporate profits. So it's corporate price gouging that's leading to it. And that's also a monopoly problem. If we just enforce our antitrust laws, we'd be in a better place. If we didn't outsource all of our jobs and we manufactured more here at home, we'd be in a better place. Because that would also be a way to fix the supply chain effectively. These are the main things leading to inflation. Because when you have a downturn, you're supposed to do government spending. The idea that the government spending is the problem and is leading to inflation, I don't buy at all. I think that's totally bogus. This is the standard right-wing economics idea, which is a very pervasive idea. I know, because I used to believe it until I read more about why we were facing inflation. And it turns out that idea is just wrong.
We have inflation, so that's a large part of that.
It's
just basic economics.
And that is not basic economics. We had this thing called a pandemic, we had a supply chain crisis, and by the way, there's a war in Ukraine. To act like the only reason we have problems now is because people got a little bit of money in their bank account is just not honest.
And a little bit of money, they got more than we spent in World War II. So don't act like...
World War II. They got more than we spent in World War II. World War II. World War II. Okay, Bill. Reel it in, fam. Reel it in. Now, what you're about to see is that's incredibly misleading, because he's pretending like all of the money in the COVID relief packages went directly to average Joes and Janes, and it did not. Krystal's about to set the record straight on that.
Hold on.
Whoa.
Hold on.
Don't act like, you said don't act. Don't act like we had to react to the pandemic exactly the way we did. We had to spend $6 trillion
Okay, but how about
on
the
forever flu.
trillions that the Federal Reserve shot at Wall Street? For some reason, people don't
What?
get upset about that.
How much-
and
what'd you
that
say?
fueled the trillions of dollars the Federal Reserve shot at Wall Street to backstop the stock market and the bond market. No one gets upset about that, even though that was a massive
I don't know
factor
what
in
you're talking
inflation.
about. What do you mean shot at Wall Street?
Well,
When are we talking about?
We're talking about buying assets, buying stocks, buying bonds, buying treasury bills
When?
so that they expand
When
the
did
balance
this?
sheet. This is during the crisis, the coronavirus crisis. When the stock market crashed, that is what the Fed did. They went into action. They shot
But the
trillions
stock
of
market
dollars.
didn't crash during
Now
COVID.
it's crap.
He doesn't remember. He doesn't remember. I remember covering it and showing the articles. There was some PBS or NPR article that it's like multi-trillions of dollars was just shot out of the Fed and went right to Wall Street and went right to the corporations. How does he not know this? How does he not know this? And by the way, it's proven after the fact. The executive producer, James of Breaking Points, sent us after the fact. Bill Maher did a monologue at the time where he mentioned the market is in free fall. He just doesn't remember it. And the thing that annoyed me was like the unearned smugness of it. Like he's so arrogant about, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? As if like, because he doesn't remember it, it definitely didn't happen. It's unbelievable. And Krystal does a great job there explaining it, trying to walk him through it very slowly.
It's crashing now.
It crashed and the Fed came in and backstopped it. That's what happened.
What, it crashed and we
that's
never
what I'm
heard about
saying.
it?
No, it crashed.
No, we did hear about it, and you talked about it in your monologue. Jesus Christ, Bill. For the love of God, is it really that hard? He doesn't have the ability to do this. Is it really that hard to be like, I don't remember that, but maybe that's true. Is it really that hard to do that? Is it? For him, it is. For me, if I don't know something, I'm the first one to be like, look, guys, I don't know the answer here. He can't do it. He can't do it. That's astonishing.
Crashed. Go back and look at it.
When-
It fell off a cliff.
when?
The Treasury bond market stopped functioning, and the Fed took extraordinary action it's never taken in history.
I don't
Somehow
remember
no one
that.
gets
Maybe the
upset.
first week of the-
Somehow nobody gets upset about the rich people who got tons of money and tons of support,
Oh, yeah.
way more than working class people did.
Sure
but
they
oh
do.
my God, people were able to feed their kids and they had a little bit of money in their bank accounts. It was the worst thing in the world.
No.
That is one small part of the inflation story, and is, by the way, not the only thing that we can deal with to get out of this mess.
Oh my goodness. Again, incredible job here by Krystal Ball. And really, the other two cannot keep up. It's what was, oftentimes when there is someone who is more on the left on this show, it can be hard to get, a word in edgewise because this is basically you got to talk over each other. But Krystal Ball here just again and again gets her points out, is able to succinctly, put forward this actual knowledge that the other two are lacking. How does Bill Maher not remember that there was a stock market crash? Like, this is your job, dude. You forgot about this? Now, look, I get a lot has happened since then. Even I, for a second, was like, crash. Oh, yeah, the crash. Like, that happened. So I'll go over a bit of that in a second here. But and I'll get to a third clip that's also great.
And guys, the thing is, they rushed in to dump trillions immediately. So that's why maybe some people didn't remember. Because they immediately did it. Now, compare that to any sort of crisis faced by working families. And the working families are hung out to dry. I mean, they let unemployment expire. And then they brag about how we have super low unemployment numbers. Or people on unemployment, I should say. Well, you let it expire. And so the people are just in pain now. So I think that's the thing is like, and this is the point Krystal's making, is that they rush in immediately to try to help when it's the bigwigs. But when it's, your average working family, it's like pulling teeth to get any sort of support. And if they do support, it's temporary. And again, when they did, even temporary support, Biden's approval rating shot up. As soon as that expired, it went way down.
Just Krystal Ball. Again, fantastic job. And, I've disagreed with her at times in terms of maybe certain issues that she's focused on or certain topics she hasn't focused on as much that I would focus more on. But regardless, we have different, approaches to these things. That's fine. That's normal. It's okay to have differing views or differing emphasis on certain topics. But here, throughout this episode, did a fantastic job getting her points out and really educating the audience. Now, so I'm going to go over a bit of this because this is just amazing that these people, Bill Maher and James Kirchick, the other guy there, just are completely out to lunch. From American Prospect here, which, by the way, great piece. I will read a bit more from it in a second here. But David Dayen, if you want to know what the hell happened here in terms of the crash and what the Fed did, read David Dayen's piece. In fact,
David Dayen is must read if you care about what's actually going on and learning about it. Again, he's the one who did the Biden executive order tracker, too, and explains here are the things Biden can do.
just follow David Dayen and the American Prospect in general. Fantastic outlet here. But his headline, how the Fed bailed out the investor class without spending a cent. Just announcing $4.5 trillion in future spending to support securities markets was enough to keep owners of capital protected from the downsides of the coronavirus. So I'll get to more on this shortly here, but this is what Krystal Ball is is referring to here. And so let me just quickly, global stock market post biggest falls since 2008 crisis. So that was March 9th, 2020 from The Guardian. This here, Black Thursday, Wall Street stocks plunged 10% in worst one-day loss in 32 years. The key takeaways from this crash. So the 2020 stock market crash began just as the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 an official pandemic. The Dow Jones fell nearly 3,000 points on March 16, 2020, was the largest single-day drop in U.S. stock market history. Unlike some previous crashes, however, the market rebounded quickly and set new records in late 2020 and early 2021. So just to be clear here is the Dow Jones, 10 biggest one-day point losses in history. The top 7 are all 2020.
Wow. Wow. I didn't even know that one, bro. Holy shit.
Like, come on. Bill Maher, where were you? What's going on here? And here it is in graph form, just to give you, a bigger indication or more context in terms of how big this drop was.
That's incredible.
But more here in terms of what the Fed did. Just quickly, I'll do the key takeaways. Again, David Dane's piece is incredibly long and detailed, but just his takeaways here so you understand what actually went on. The Federal Reserve announced on March 23rd that it would start direct purchases of corporate debt, an unprecedented rescue of corporate America. Since then, the stock market has risen over 30%.
By the way, Richard Wolff talks about this a lot, and he's super substantive, so check him out too.
Corporate bond funds have recovered, and companies have saved tens of billions in borrowing costs. Thanks to this massive government subsidy, large companies like Boeing and Carnival Cruises were able to avoid taking money directly, a sidestep requirements to keep employees on, by instead issuing bonds. The Intercept and the American Prospect have identified 49 companies that issued corporate debt since March 23rd, adding up to hundreds of billions they otherwise couldn't have secured so cheaply, providing a safety net to the investor class and making a mockery of the alleged virtues of free market capitalism. This sets the stage for companies with functionally no revenue path in the near future to take on mounds of additional debt, and could set the stage for a series of defaults. So again, great piece here, but this is what happened. They bailed out these massive corporations, bailed out Wall Street, and what did people get? A single check from the American Rescue Plan, and Bill Maher saying, oh, they got all this money. The elite bubble that he is in, Bill Maher often talks about bubbles. How the right's in a bubble, how the far left woke mob, they're in a bubble. Bill Maher is in a bubble. He is in the elite bubble. To not realize that people are struggling and that a single check is not going to save their lives is remarkable to me. But it shows you really how disconnected he has become. He's always been disconnected, but this is even more so than, previously. But let me get to the last clip here.
Yeah, again, go and check out my video, Old School Based Bill Maher Takes. You'll see there actually was a time when I would argue he wasn't, disconnected and in his elite bubble. He held it down for a while for the left during the Bush, Cheney administration, during parts of the Obama administration. So it sucks what's happened.
Which is over gas prices.
Gas prices we can largely attribute to an administration that's been waging war on the fossil fuel industry.
That's ridiculous.
And
they
now
drilled more than everybody. I mean,
that's the talking point.
U.S. production.
No.
Okay, U.S. production is up.
Well,
it will be at record levels next year.
Okay, well,
the fossil fuel companies themselves are flush with cash, but will not invest in new drilling because they would rather give it to their
Look at his face. Look at his face.
shareholders.
Okay, all right,
That's the truth of what's
happening. Well, here's the truth. I mean, I just read it today. In 2020, Biden said no more drilling on federal lands. No more.
No Keystone Pipeline.
Yeah, no. Okay, and I'm not for
Keystone Pipeline. All of the stuff from that was going to be exported. All of it. All of it. None of it was going to go to domestic use. So, again, that drives me crazy that people don't know that or don't bring that up when they talk about the Keystone XL pipeline.
And also antagonizing Saudi Arabia. Now he's going back to Saudi Arabia hat in hand.
Wait. Let us finish just what we're saying.
All right.
And then you can shut up.
Well, antagonizing the Saudis with his Iran deal policy, and now he's going back to them hat in hand to get them to increase their production.
But I bet you're in favor of the Russian oil ban. Because
yeah,
the Saudis are great humanitarians.
Russia is raping a country right now.
Yeah,
and
the Saudis are amazing humanitarians.
No, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. They're our allies.
Here. And by the way,
That's a great point. She called him speeding hard there. We need to take a moral stand. No more Russian oil and gas. But Saudi Arabia, they're our allies, so what are you going to do? They're committing a genocide in Yemen. Now, of course, I'm against what Russia's doing in Ukraine. I'm also against what Saudi Arabia is doing in Yemen. So if you're really looking at this and you have a consistent moral standard, you'd probably be like, you know what, we maybe shouldn't take oil from either one of them. Which, by the way, gets to the broader point of why don't we nationalize our oil? And then we could also prioritize, using it domestically. And we would disentangle from the rest of the world on this front. And you wouldn't have to worry about, Iran, Venezuela, Saudi Arabia, Russia, etc.
The only issue with oil is not just supply and demand, because as I was just saying, we actually have a fairly significant amount of supply. It isn't at, extraordinarily low levels if you look at the recent past.
The last time a barrel of oil cost what it costs now, gas nationally was $3.48. Cost the same. A barrel cost the same. Now it's over $5 a gallon. Back then it was $3.48. So what's the difference? Price gouging. There's a saying about oil that it shoots up like a rocket, but it comes down like a feather. And that's what we're witnessing. They're price gouging. So he could do a windfall profits tax, or he could just nationalize them, and that'll teach him. But Biden's not going to do that. He wrote, a mean letter to them. Ooh.
We don't have an extraordinary amount of demand. We're not even back to pre-pandemic levels. You do have a massive amount of Wall Street speculation that is also causing an increase in gas prices.
Yeah.
So again,
And they're doing billions in stock buybacks, by the way.
this is what I'm saying, that the
Gouging.
only people who are talking about
And
that,
some people
there's a lot of price gouging.
There's a lot of gouging.
So you asked
and always
whether
depend on them to gouge.
you asked whether Biden is not pandering to the left enough for too much or whatever. The left are the only ones talking about those issues, about the fact that you have monopolies that have jacked up prices far above what they need to because they can use the excuse of inflation. And CEOs are bragging on earnings calls about how they've lifted prices and gouged
All right,
consumers, and we're not doing anything about it.
Oh my God.
Jeez.
I'm so impressed. I really am. This was such a fantastic job. Maybe one of the best appearances from any guest I've seen on Bill Maher, just in terms of her ability to get these points out, to just put these people in their place. Multiple times there, she shut down James Kirchick and just exposed his garbage on monopolies, on oil production, on his lack of principles when it comes to the Saudis versus the Russians. And then by the end, he just had nothing to say. Because what can he say? What Krystal Ball is detailing there is exactly right. It's objective reality. So quickly on some of those points. Yes, U.S. oil output rises 3% in March to highest since November. So highest oil output since November, yet gas prices are way up. I wonder what's going on there. Maybe massive profits for these oil giants. Here you see profits of 4 large oil giants, Shell, BP, Chevron, Exxon. This is from Business Insider. You can see how it's increased into 2022. Headline here from a month ago from The Guardian. Largest oil and gas producers made close to $100 billion in first quarter of 2022. Shell made $9.1 billion in profit, almost 3 times what it made in the same period last year, while Exxon raked in $8.8 billion. But somehow it's because of the Green New Deal. Because Biden's shutting down oil production. These people, they are so rarely actually challenged on their points with facts that when someone is there to challenge them, they shut the fuck up because they have no idea what to say. Amazing job here by Krystal Ball. Fantastic. Just pure praise. I have nothing else to say. Just amazing job. I hope Bill Maher has more guests like this on, but I feel like he won't. There's a part, I think I showed it in one of the clips, where Bill Maher is surprised that Krystal Ball says that she's on the left, because Bill Maher definitely does not intentionally bring people on who are on the left. Now, his view of the left, again, maybe a little skewed. He thinks the left is people talking about Latinx versus saying, Latino, as opposed to someone who's economically on the left like Krystal Ball is. But regardless, Bill Maher rarely ever has any leftist on his show. So to actually have Krystal Ball here and her be able to make these sorts of points and shut these morons down was wonderful to see.
Yeah, so as I told you guys, again, go watch our behind-the-scenes video, because I recorded a bunch of stuff behind the scenes. I actually got to meet Bill Maher, and I was kind of nervous to do it, because you guys know, there's plenty of segments on Secular Talk that were positive of Bill Maher when I think he made good points. But recently there's been a lot of criticism, because he's saying a lot of things I think are really bad. Like, he came out against student loan debt abolition. And so I was afraid, like, oh shit, maybe he's seen some of my criticisms of him, and I was kind of worried. But not only did he not see any of the criticisms, he didn't know who I was. And I thought there was like a 50 to 60% chance he would know who I was. No idea. None whatsoever. So to David's point, like, yeah, he does have like this bias. It's an anti, internet or online bias. He thinks that people who've, spent their whole time online, they didn't really earn their stripes. They're not like, they didn't officially make it. It doesn't matter how big a show is. It's just, no, that's like they just look down on, it's a very elitist mindset of like, they look down on anybody who comes through that route. So yeah, if he doesn't know me, that means he doesn't know anybody else on the online left. And he doesn't bring in a few leftists that you could argue are somehow, in the mainstream, the handful, you probably count them on one hand. And Krystal goes on there and he assumed that Krystal wasn't even left wing. So that is kind of crazy. That is kind of crazy. But props to David Dole here. Again, Krystal did a fantastic job. She finally calmed down and realized she did a good job when now in the aftermath, like 100% of the comments are like, oh my God, you crushed it. She's gotten DMs from a bunch of people. And she was trending on Twitter because she destroyed Bill Maher. It's funny. She trended like the day after. It's very interesting how it like lagged. But yeah, that was great. And this video really blew up, man. David Dole's been killing it lately. He has so many videos that blow up now, and I'm really happy for him because this doesn't really happen to anybody on the left anymore. And this video, right now it says 279, but I clicked on it a while ago. I saw earlier on my phone, it's actually at like 310,000 already. So shout out to David Dole, and dog, give me a little bit of your magic because I'd like some of that algorithm love as well, and I certainly don't know how to get it. Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.